Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to tell you about an awesome way for you to rub elbows with your favorite podcast hosts here on the Sports History Network, while at the same time rooting for your hometown team this upcoming NFL season. You've been hearing all about our partner, Tailgate Fantasy, the past few weeks. Well, dig on this. Tailgate created a special Sports History Network league for our listeners, so we can put the word fan back into fantasy football together. It's free to join, and if you do so before the season kicks off, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing for a free t-shirt from one of our other partners, Home Field Apparel. It's a win-win-win! So hurry up today and head to sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate for all the details. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/tailgate.
Blog Talk Radio.
Tonight, we will go back in time to seasons past, when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score which would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle on the gridiron. Tonight, we will explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Gridiron Greats Publishing and Broadcasting Network, in conjunction with Swick Enterprises. We're live from the Wallingford, Connecticut home of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats Magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America which focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We're covering 140-plus years of football history and memorabilia. And you can find us on the web at www.gridirongreatsmagazine.com. We're sponsored by MSB Sports Card. Check out their website at www.msbsportscards.com and by BST Auctions. Check out their website at bstauctions.com for the best and most complete amount of football cards and memorabilia on the website. Check them out today. And before I introduce my special guest host, I'd like to send out a note of healing prayers and before I introduce my guest co-host, I would like to send out a note of well-being and prayers for contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, Tex Noel. Tex unfortunately suffered a massive stroke on April 14th. He's still in the hospital. I've been conversing via email with Tex's wife, Melody, over the past week or so. Tex is feeling better, but it's going to be a long hike before he can get back in the swing of things. I guess it really impacted his left side, and his speech is very slurred. So I'd like to send Tex get well wishes, and I hope he feels better very, very quickly. Now, at this time, I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats Magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. Be hailed from Portland, Oregon, Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show this evening.
Good morning, Captain. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, sir. I'm very good.
I apologize for my technical difficulties this morning.
Not a problem. Not a problem. We're on a weekend schedule here, so it's somewhat different. Now, Joe, I want to move right into. There's been a ton of auctions going on over the past few weeks, and including the first section of the Mike Blaisdell collection that was auctioned on BST Auctions. So let's get right into it. First, starting off with. And I'm going to go, I know you sent me a brief email on a few things. Tonight's REA auction is ending later this evening. And a couple points on that. Give me some feedback on the 60 top solo box. I have been looking at that also, as much as you have.
Just cello and wax has just been taking off lately. I'm sure you've seen. I mean, we had a couple guests on.
Cello box.
Yeah, cello and wax both. I mean, have just been taking off. But I mean, in particular, vintage and 1960 tops complete cello box, 36 count cellos inside. One of the cellos has Jim Brown's 1960 card showing on it, which the 1960 Jim Brown is almost as popular as his rookie card, but it's $27,000. I mean, and we've discussed what the ROI is. If you could go back in time and scarf up a couple of these, $4 boxes of cello back in 1960 and set them aside. If you would have invested $4 in the stock market versus cello or wax, where would you be at? It's kind of funny to think about.
You got it. Yeah. It's amazing to see what the prices of these older wax and older cello boxes are going for. It's just truly amazing, to say the least. Now, there's another.
It's like they say in real estate, they're not making anymore.
Right. And there's two other items I think are very worth noting on that auction. There's a Grange item and a Thorpe item. Can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, what I love it. Well, there's a 33 Sports King, Grange and Thorpe, both PSA 8 up for sale. Those aren't rare, but you just don't see them very often, both of those. But then the one that I love is an autographed 33 Sports King Thorpe card. I've never seen an autograph, and it's kind of interesting because I think when did Thorpe die? 50. I forget. He died very young. Let's say 50s or early 60s. I forget. So I mean, if you stop and think about it, this card came out in 33. I mean, it's around. It's definitely possible. I mean, or not unlikely. He signed some. It's just I've never stopped to think about that. I've never seen an autographed Sports King Thorpe card, and it's fascinating to think. I've never seen one, and it's so incredibly rare.
I think that one is exceptionally rare, and I really believe that is that's going to really be boosted as time goes on today for that particular auction, in my opinion. The other one that you had mentioned, which I think is very worth noting, the Ditka rookie, 62 tops and PSA 9. Again, with that black border, that's a real tough set to select one way or the other. And it's at 60K and climbing, which is amazing for that card. Truly amazing. And again, I can't fathom these prices for these grades. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I know I'm a dinosaur, but it just makes no sense to me whatsoever, honestly. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Well, the registry's a hell of a drug, Captain. So, I mean, and like you mentioned, black bordered, beautiful. It's one of the greatest bears to ever lace them up. Obviously, went on to become a Hall of Fame coach. He's there's a lot more to Ditka than just tight end. So pretty rare card.
It's amazing. Then I want to shoot over quickly to memory lane. As those in the hobby know, the Wagner's the holy grail of collecting the baseball Wagner card. It's a PSA 2. I haven't looked at that. I really don't do much with memory lane at all, but it's interesting to see that's up for auction. And also with that same set of auction, there's a bunch of high-end rookie cards, including a Jimmy Brown PSA 8, a Walter Payton 10, a John Elway 10, a Jimmy Rice 10, and the Landry from 51 Bowman set in a 9, which I really haven't seen anything above a 7 or 8 over the years. Yeah. Comments on that, thoughts on that?
I love that 51 Bowman set. My favorite, if you're going to ask me, my favorite Bowman set is 53, but I love the look of the 51, and I love the 52. I love all Bowman sets that have been put out. But this 51 Bowman Tom Landry is very rare. And obviously you say the name Tom Landry, and he's synonymous with, coaching the Cowboys. And there's another America's team. I mean, it's like we were talking about Ditka earlier and the Bears. I mean, this isn't just a rookie card from from another player. This is Tom Landry from a 65-year-old set. So pretty rare card.
It's a rare card. And it's a tough card to find in that condition. And I think back to my Bowman 51 Landry rookie card. I graded roughly X. I mean, I picked it up years ago. And I always say to myself, I really thought at that time, and I was kind of fussy with that card because I always believed Landry, obviously an icon in football. I always felt his rookie card was going to, truly hold value over the years. Little did I know. What happened, with the explosion and everything. But in any event, that's a real nice card in that condition, and I'm sure it's going to really go at a very, very high price by the time the auction is over. I just want to comment to what you were saying about you. I know you always liked the Bowmans. You always said you liked the Bowmans. One of the first shows I went to, probably in the late 1970s, a dealer had a bunch of 1955 Bowman football cards there, and I really had never seen them before. I knew they existed. I never even owned one. And I ended up buying a couple type cards, and I hate to say it, but they were in near mint condition, and I paid a quarter a piece for them. And I bought 4 of them for my collection. I said, well, I'll, as time goes on, I'll collect this stuff. But I couldn't pass up at a quarter each, some nice near mint 55 Bowmans.
And what year was this?
I want to say it was
what year
77 to 55 Bowman. Football.
You bought them
this was like
typeset back then. I love it.
77, 78, right around that time when I started going to shows. It was just truly amazing. And then let's move over to BST that ended last week. BST Auctions had the first installment of Mike Blaisdell's items. I'm going to start off with that 38 Overland Sammy Ball candy wrapper, which went for $3,900. Comments on that?
Very rare. I was the underbidder on that, and went to bed. Went to bed and woke up and somebody had outplayed me. So I happened to be in New York when that auction ended. I think we had I happened to be in New York, for business when that auction ended, and so I'm usually on the West Coast. I have a little bit of a advantage to you East Coasters because I can just hunker down for these Saturday night auctions and watch a little SNL and stay up till 1 a.m., which is 4 a.m. your time. So I have a tactical advantage. But being in New York, it was kind of interesting. I went to bed around 2 a.m. and woke up the next day and I was done. But when we had Mike on the show, about a month ago, he talked about how incredibly rare that Overland candy wrapper is. When a man like Mike Blaisdell says this is rare, you have my attention. So that was one of the ones in that auction I really wanted to take, just to have something from Mike's collection that that he considered rare. So
and that was go ahead. I'm sorry.
Suffice to say, that's one of a kind. I mean, who knows?
Correct. All those Overland wrappers, as far as I'm concerned, are beyond rare. They're one of a kind. You just don't see them at all, number one. Number two, no matter whatever price they're going to generate, to me, it's going to be too low for the simple reason, if it's one of a kind and you got two people wanting it, it's going to be, a bidding war one way or the other on the thing. So to me, it was very interesting. And I also want to comment, too, on what you said. East Coast collectors really have a rough time on a lot of auctions, depending on when they're going to end. And I do envy you guys on the West Coast because you do have a lot of leeway as far as those auctions are concerned. And I know a lot of East Coast collectors. They put on their high bids, and they just hope for the best, and that's all they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough auction, to say the least. Interesting piece that was in that auction that you wrote about in the last issue of Gridiron Greats Magazine, which just came out, which I got several nice comments on, because I found a couple of readers were saying they had that game when they were younger, and they completely forgot about it until you wrote about it again. But there was a Yalo game that was for sale in the auction, and I am sure you picked it up, right? Or didn't you?
I didn't. No, I figured I rang the bell on my Yalo collecting street stuff. But what I found interesting is, wrote this article, sent it off. You and I talked about it on a show, and then literally, BST opens up their auctions, and in our podcast, you'd said, do you think this is the only year that they did? That they did, this, Yalo game was, it was like 1925, 1926. I'm like, well, I'm sure, because after that, Grange got hurt and his popularity, wasn't as big, and then here it is, 1940, and I literally, shook my fist, at, John Spano throwing this 1940 game in right after I hit send on an article that basically dispelled what I'd written.
My theory on that, looking at the set online and reading about it in the catalog and trying to look at it a little closely, to me it just seems like the same set. They reprinted it or had extra that they just got out to the market at the time. And again, given the historical context of that set, it's right before World War II. They're probably saying to themselves, we just got to push out everything we possibly can. In case we can't manufacture games over the next few years. So that's another reason why probably they went to that 1940 version, and which to me is just literally the same as the 39 version you wrote about. In that auction, too, one of my favorite sets, the 59 Cons set, which consists of basically Browns and Sealer cards, a set that I've been working on for years, although not in any way, shape, or form in the condition Mike had his in. I thought that was a beautiful set in the condition he had, and I thought it went for a very, very fair price also in that auction. But again, that to me would have been a snag for anybody collecting the 59 to 64 concepts, given the condition it's in. That's a tough set to put together. I don't care what anybody says. That's a real tough set to piece together.
Yeah, and Blaisdell, when he was on the show, had said that was probably one of his favorite sets. So that kind of had my attention. Again, when Mike says something, there's certain people in the hobby you respect their opinion. I mean, I collect star player candy because Andy Becker came to me at one point and said, these are rare, dude, and they're it's a good looking set. It's like sent me some scans. I'm like, you're right, it is a good looking set, but you get in some. When somebody approaches you with something that's that rare and you've never seen it, you just kind of, okay, you're right.
Exactly. And to me, anybody who collects and has a complete run of 59 to 64 concepts, to me, that's an incredible collection of cards. They're very rare. I don't care what anybody says. Even though you can find them, you still really got to hunt them down, especially the 59, 60, and 61s, because they're just not out there as far as I'm concerned. 63 and 64, for whatever reason, there's a lot more out there. But to me, the 1959s and 60s are two of the more difficult ones to actually put together and complete. I know 60 and 61, I don't have that many. 62, 63, 64, I have a lot more. And the 59 set, I think I'm down to 7, but unfortunately they're all the big names, the Brown, Bobby Lane, everybody and anybody who's expensive, those are the ones that I need. And then the last point on BST, one of my favorite sets, one I have a couple pieces of, the Walker Cleaners Green Bay Packer 1932 issue. Beautiful, beautiful classic poses of Packer players from that year. your thoughts on that, on those that sold there.
All Hall of Famers, all rare. I mean, I first learned about this set probably about 5-6 years ago. Andy Becker was telling me about it. Then I got to see some of them in person when I, stayed at Andy's house, and we went to a Seahawk versus Bear football game at Soldier Field. So I mean, I got to see it. That's again, that's where my experience comes from. Is drinking from the fountain of knowledge from the collectors who paved the way before me. And so when one came up, probably about 5 years ago, in Heritage, Andy, and I decided to chop it. It was a full set, it was a full set, loose, and we decided to chop it. And then a couple years later, when one came up in a full book, which was pretty rare, I had the opportunity to purchase it, and I did. So I love the set. I think it's beautiful. It's obviously incredibly rare, especially in the book form. It's just chocked with Hall of Famers that have no rookie cards, that have no modern rookie cards. It's and for as rare as it is, I think at one point somebody said full or partial. There's between 9 and 10 sets total.
Right.
To see some of them come up like this is pretty cool, pretty rare, obviously. So
right. My gut feeling, and I've always said this: there's 10 or less of each, and that actually still exists. And if you do own one of the 10 of any of the player, to me, it's a rare piece, one way or the other. Even for the obscure players that were from 32. So it's.
Do you have any of these?
It was amazing to see them at the same time. Great.
Do you own any of these? I mean, Packers are your team. Your team, baby.
Oh yeah, I know. I have the Melinda one in perfect condition with the tab over. I actually have it prominently displayed in my man cave, my collecting room. Okay. So it's a beautiful piece that issue is, and it's so, and to me again, so rare. It's amazing from a team that so many people like. But at this time, our guest has arrived, and I'd like to introduce him. Our guest tonight is a longtime and avid collector of Boston Patriot programs, who has an incredible collection of early Patriots programs from their inception of the American Football League in 1960. I'd like to welcome to our show from the great state of Minnesota, but currently talking to us from Boston, Massachusetts, Mr. Michael Steele. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. You are correct. I am in Boston right now, just having the time of my life. So, watching the Cubs and Red Sox this weekend. So, back to Minnesota tomorrow.
You're seeing some good baseball too, from what I hear. Even though last night's game didn't go as planned, but
it didn't go as planned. But I'm actually. I know we're here to talk about football, but I'm actually satisfying a bucket list for an uncle of mine that lives in Chicago that had never seen Fenway Park, and
oh wow!
So we went to both Friday night and Saturday's games. So each team got a win, and we had great seats. It's just the weather was incredible, and I was happy to satisfy his bucket list. He's 81 years old and a diehard Cub fan. So,
good for you, Michael.
Thank you.
That's great. I'm just hoping when I'm 81, Joe will take me to a Packers Seattle game somewhere, and either in Green Bay or Seattle, and I can satisfy my bucket list, and then throw in Largent sitting in the same booth with us. We'll be all set.
Right.
That sounds like my bucket list.
I beat you to it, Joe, this time. I beat you to it. So, all right, let's start off. Michael, please tell our listeners how you got started in collecting Boston Patriot programs.
Well, it's been a lifelong passion, the Boston/New England Patriots for me. I've been a fan my whole life, and a collector, of course, and I've always loved collecting programs. Every game I've ever gone to as a kid, I collected the program. I still have all of them. Back in my early days of collecting, after I was an adult in the 80s and 90s, I collected Red Sox, and Bruins programs, the hockey team. So my goal was to get one program from every home program from every year of those two teams, and I satisfied that goal. And I had some Patriot programs, maybe 15, 20 years ago, and like I said, I've always loved the Patriots, and I started looking at some of their early 60s programs and the Phil Bissell artwork. Phil Bissell is an artist that actually designed the Pat Patriot logo, the original. Actually, it's the second team logo, but back in they had an original logo in 1960 that lasted like 2 months, and then the Pat Patriot logo came in, and Phil Bissell was the man that designed that. And so from 1960 to 1966 or so, most of the home programs for the Patriots were his artwork, and it's just incredible, the artwork that he did. Usually it's whoever the opponent was playing the Patriots, it was the Patriots in some form of Pat Patriot logo beating up on the other team in some way, shape, or form. In a cartoon style, and there's just some amazing programs from those years, and what I did about 15 years ago, I won a lot, small lot, and I decided, and I saw some of those programs and I loved them. Did some more research, and I decided that I was going to try and at least get one from every year. And I did that, and I started looking at all the programs, covers from 60 to 64. And in 65 and 66, there was some Phil Bissell artwork, and then there was some generic artwork where you had actual pictures of players on the program. And so they were kind of weaning off of him a little bit. So 60 to 64, every program is just amazing Phil Bissell artwork. So I decided I needed to get every program that was produced a copy for each home game from 60 through 64, and then wherever he had his artwork. So basically it's 60 through 66, and I'm almost there, not quite there, but there's some toughies, but it's been very satisfying and rewarding. I look at the collection all the time.
Yeah.
I'm
always envious
I
sorry, go ahead, Bob.
I agree with you that his artwork is spectacular. And again, I've handled many of those programs over the years, buying, selling, and trading them over the years. And you get any real collector of artwork of football programs has to appreciate what he did with those covers. Number one. And if you're a Patriots fan, that's even a bigger bonus because you can even enjoy the program more as a Patriots fan on top of it. And the other comment I was going to make, I believe beginning in 67, they went to that AFL pictorial program, which was more the action scene, and it was more of a generic couple articles along with the local inserts for the AFL after the merge. So a lot of those early programs were even more special than the later 60 programs at the same time. So I thoroughly agree with you. They are beautiful programs to look at and wonderful to read, and they're classic football world.
I've always been envious of teams, with history. I mean, Bob's a Packers fan. Packers are steeped in history, in the NFL. I'm a Seahawks fan.
Absolutely.
My history goes back to '76, I collected. I have a collection of every program from the Seahawks' first year, and then I have several tickets. And one of my favorite tickets in my collection is the first win of the Seahawks franchise, which obviously was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, our two expansion teams that year. Tampa Bay went winless that year, and we had one win against them. So.
I didn't know that just the one win in '76. One win.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So we always like to whittle it down. I mean, the classic question: what are the top 5 items in your collection? I mean, it's always one of my favorite questions, just because it makes people think about what they have. So.
Yeah, my top item is the Patriots were fortunate enough to play in the very first AFL game, regular season game, September 9th, 1960, against the Denver Broncos at BU Field. I can get into a whole conversation about all the different fields the Patriots played in their first 10 years of their existence. So, and my dad passed away last year. He saw them everywhere from 1960 through 1970 before they moved to Schaefer Stadium. But that first program is special. It's not as difficult as some of the other programs from that first year, but it's the first day of all program that makes it a little more expensive. Actually, a lot more expensive. But just to have that when you combine, how combine how rare it is to begin with the fact that it's the first AFL game that was ever played. That was definitely. I guess that's my favorite, my best program. And there's a couple that I don't have from 1960 that are tough to find. I'm still looking for November 4th, 1960 against the Oakland Raiders, and that was the first home win for the franchise, for the Boston Patriots. So
I love that you have that date memorized.
I do. Don't get me. I can rattle off the record of the Patriots from really starting in my youth. And I was born in 1960, so I didn't get to see the first 4 or 5 years or 6 years of the franchise, but starting in like 67, 68, I can rattle off their records, no problem at all. I was, and that has a lot to do with my dad. I mean, he would take me to games probably as early as 65, 66. So I've seen him in Fenway Park and Harvard Stadium, and then on to Schaefer, Foxborough Stadium. So, it's been a lifelong passion. And there's not to get too off track, but there's every Christmas, and I have 3 siblings, and I'm the oldest. Every Christmas we take a photo after we open our presents, and this is Christmas Day, 1968, and I'm 8 years old. And one of the presents I got was a Patriots helmet. My favorite present by far. We took a picture afterwards, and we took a Polaroid afterwards, and I still have that picture of me holding the Patriots helmet in my lap, and I have the biggest grin. I mean, I'm just incredible.
You're gonna laugh.
Incredibly happy.
Michael, when I was 10, 9 or 10, I forget, I got a Seahawks helmet. The old logo and just single chin strap, 2-bar, face mask. I still have that helmet, incredibly enough, and my son wears it. We'll go out and play catch now lately, and he
nice.
You talk about tradition.
Exactly.
I also want to add. I googled it while we were talking. The Seahawks had 2 wins that first season. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay.
We probably beat the Buccaneers twice.
Probably. John McKay. Yeah, that's 0-14. That's it's since been matched by the Lions. So worse. It's just ingrained in my family, Patriots history, I suppose, and it stays with me to this day. And I've never switched. People always. I've moved several times. I moved out of the Boston area when I was 16, and our family moved. We moved to Kansas City, which is where a lot of my immediate family is. My brother and sisters are still in Kansas City, and my mom. And I've since moved a few times with my job, and I haven't switched allegiances. I get quizzed on it all the time. You live in Minnesota now. I lived in Denver for a while. Are you a Bronco fan? Kansas City, or are you a Chiefs fan? So no, I've stuck by my allegiances all these years.
Good for you. Yeah,
that's good. That's important. And again, I throw out my story back in 76, 77. My mom used to make us a couple sandwiches and a couple cans of soda. My buddy and I used to drive up to Schaefer Stadium, buy tickets the day of the game, and just sit around the stadium there. And then if the game was a complete blowout, we'd try to leave at the third quarter because you know how it is trying to get out of Schaefer Stadium there. You know, the one road in, the one road out.
Especially the early 70s, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if the game was okay and it was getting close, we said, all right, let's just stay, and then we'll stay even longer until they kick us out. And then by that time, the traffic will be out more, and then we'll head home that way. Because it was about a 2.5-hour drive from where we lived in Connecticut here.
In Connecticut, okay, right.
And great memories of my buddy and I going up there on games. And I remember he used to work for a little sporting goods store in Branford, Connecticut. We were from North Branford, Connecticut. And he would always get preseason game tickets for nothing, which to us were, those tickets were gold. How many chances did you get to go to a game for free? So we used to get excited about those games because it was a night game, so we'd get home real late type of thing, and it was a fun experience. Now, you can't even give away preseason game tickets because nobody wants to go see them. But back then, it was a whole fun event to see. And I do still have my preseason programs from all the Patriot games that I attended over the years. So that was pretty cool.
There you go. And there was more preseason games back then. They had 6, right? Instead of 4.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult program you collected for your collection, if any? Do you have one in particular?
Yeah. I would say, this is probably an interesting answer for you, but one of the games that I went to when I was a kid that I remember so vividly. It's not an expensive program, but boy, it was hard for me to track down. I had to have the program. It was in 1972. So I'm 12 years old. I can tell you the day of the game. I mean, my dad took me to the game at Schaefer Stadium. They played the Washington Redskins, October 1st, 1972. And
wow.
I had a tough time tracking down that. I finally found it on eBay. I don't know. It took me a couple years because, it's a regular season game. It was game number 3 for the Patriots. They finished 3-11 in 72. But at that point they were 1-1. So it was game number 3. The Redskins were tough. The Redskins were tough that year. They had the yellow helmets and they went to the Super Bowl that year and lost to the Dolphins, the 14-0 Dolphins. And so they were good. They had Billy Kilmer and Roy Jefferson and that game is still the best football game I have ever been to in my life. You can Google it and look up the score. The Patriots won 24-23. And I know the details of the end of the game. I was on pins and needles. We had great seats, better seats than Bob Kraft probably. Bob Kraft always talks about how he was up, towards the top on the 50-yard line. Well, we were like 15 rows off the field on the 25-yard line. I don't know how my dad got those tickets, but and it was a gorgeous day. And the Patriots won 24-23. Long story short, actually Washington tied the game with a field goal. There was a penalty. They took points off the board. They made it 24-24. Took points off the board. Stopped the Patriots. The Patriots punted, but they blocked it. The ball's rolling around in the end zone. 5 Redskins had a chance to, fall on it for a touchdown. It scored it out of the back of the end zone for a safety, so we still had the lead at 24-23. Then you have to punt back to the Redskins, and they tried another field goal with like 2 seconds left from like 50 yards out and missed it. I think that was Mosley. So, yeah, that game is still as you can tell, is still ingrained in my mind. So the program from that game proved to be I didn't get a program that day for whatever reason. So I don't know why I didn't get a program, but so I hunted it down.
Wow. That's a great story for that. I mean, wow. That's amazing. That's truly amazing.
That is why we collect. Michael, you just put a bow on why we collect.
That's why we collect. Two years earlier, I had a much easier time tracking down this game, but in 1970 they played the Chargers, and I did get a program that day too at Harvard Stadium, and they lost that game, and that one was a little bit easier for me to collect. Those are the two programs I had to have that I knew I went to the games that I failed to get a program. So, but yeah, you're right.
Did you get
exactly
programs?
Right.
What you just said. So it sounds like you have programs in your collection that you actually got on the game. By attending the game.
Yes. Yep. Me and my dad went to the opening day 1973 when O.J. Simpson ran wild on the Patriots. 212. It was a record at the time. You have the program from that game. that was an interesting game. That was not a good Patriots team that year. And,
so were you a collector back
then?
then? So it seems like you went to a game, you grabbed a program, you kept it, and you took it home and put it in a box. So
exactly.
Even back then, collector. Right. What about ticket stubs?
Yep.
Did you save ticket stubs from games?
Yes, I save ticket stubs from game. Now I don't actually go out and try and, as far as the Patriots are concerned, I don't try and go out and, that might be my next project after I finish all the programs is to go out, because I do love ticket stubs, and I've got an extensive Red Sox ticket collection, and so I with the Patriots I have all the games that I went to, the ticket stubs to this day. So a couple from Fenway Park in the 66, 67, and then 68 they were at Boston College. 69 they were at Harvard Stadium before they finally got their own stadium. In 1971, when Foxborough opened. So I still have all those.
It's my experience that those ticket stubs, especially from 60 to 69, for whatever reason, for the Patriots, are very tough to find. So you get a nice collection formed from the original games. But I know several people who collected those over the years, and they always said they had a real tough time, especially the 60 to 64 home games for the Patriots were very, very difficult to find. Obviously a lot of people didn't. You know what I mean? Which is common, obviously.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Michael,
which is going to go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to move on to the next question, but stories are way better than questions. So go for it.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Bob.
No, I was going to say, I mean, there's always fun stories. I mean, collections don't always go perfect. I mean, do you have any stories meeting sellers in the parking lot of a Walmart at midnight, handing them an envelope with cash to get a rare program? Any weird stories?
Nothing quite that weird, but I do have a very recent story that just happened to me in the last month. I'll try and be brief, but it's kind of an interesting story. I got an email from Josh Wolkin, who may know as the VP at Huggins and Scott Auction House, and I'm not real friends with Josh, but I buy from their auction occasionally, and he had looked me up, and he said that somebody from the New England Patriots was looking to find who won one of their lots in 2010. It was a Patriots program lot, a bunch of the early Phil Bissell programs, and that was me. And these programs, this lot was really nice. The programs were in superb condition. There's about a dozen in the lot. So I'm looking at this email going, somebody from the Patriots? So Josh hooked me up with as it turns out, the director of brand awareness and fan experience, senior director of a very nice lady with the Patriots. And we started going back and forth, and she wanted to borrow the programs from that lot. And I still had most of them. There was some duplication in the lot, but I still had about 10 of those programs. I wound up sending about a dozen to her. And what they did with them was they took high-resolution scans to make artwork to hang in the offices at Gillette Stadium. This just happened 2 weeks ago. So that was a great experience. I made sure to tell the lady that I was dealing with that I was a lifelong Patriots fan. And they took care of me. I didn't ask for anything, but they took care of me very nicely, and it was a great experience dealing with the Patriots, just out of the blue, just completely out of the blue, and I said, you found the right guy. So
yeah, no kidding, lifelong Patriots fan. I had better seats
Well,
than Robert Kraft.
The one thing I got to say, and I've heard this story, I've heard some other stories over the years. The Patriots, especially when Bob Kraft took them over, really appreciates their fans, and they very much appreciate the actual history of the Patriots. And I think that's real important. There's other teams that could give two hoots about their history, and the Patriots are not one of them. Patriots truly, truly care about the history of their team, and historical items such as the program, the ticket stub, pennants, so on and so forth. So I'm real happy when I heard that story, Michael, when he had mentioned it before, and I said to myself, that's what it should be. That's really what the NFL should be about. You have a team. I don't care if you were 1921, 1976, 1989, whatever year you started. You have a history, and you have to respect that history. And some teams just don't bother with it. I'm very, very surprised about that. But the Patriots,
that's a shame. That's really
it always. Looking at from the outside, it's always seemed that the Patsies have a great culture. And I take that by looking at players like Randy Moss, who are loudmouths and showboaters at other teams who come to the Patsies, and suddenly they toe the line. Suddenly they get on board with that culture, and you've got stupid stuff, Deflategate, which people think that tarnishes it. And I don't, in all honesty, I don't, but.
I'm glad to hear you say that, Joe.
I've always been a closeted fan of the Patriots, except Malcolm Butler. I'm not a fan of him. He's we all know why I don't like him.
I have a quick story. Just yesterday, another Malcolm Mitchell. He had a good rookie season. His 4th round pick out of Georgia. Caught a few balls in the Super Bowl. I actually caught a couple passes at the end of on the last drive that tied it in that Super Bowl 51. He was signing autographs yesterday, and I was actually at the show to get Johnny Busick's autograph, an old Bruin great. This was the show in Wilmington that's happening this weekend. So I'm at the show, and my sister is just she's a huge Patriot fan too. My little sister, and she lives in Kansas City, loves Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady. She's so she's crazy about the Patriots, and I call her a bandwagon collector because she jumped on when Brady came in, but that's okay, that's all right. But anyways, Malcolm Mitchell is there, and she's like, "Can you get his autograph, please?" She's begging me, and I'm like, "Okay, all right, no problem." I walk up to Malcolm. I've got her on the phone. I've got Karen on the phone, my sister. And I go, Malcolm, this is really for my sister. I'm a big fan too, but this is for my sister. He's like, "What's your sister's name?" I'm like, "Karen." And he's like, "Is that her on the phone? Put her on speaker."
Wow.
So I put her on speaker, and they had like a 2-minute conversation while he signed the autograph. And it made my sister's day. Malcolm was one of her favorite players, and now it's probably, besides Brady, her favorite player. So that was, and he was very cordial, great kid. He was I couldn't believe he did that with my sister. I mean, they had a great conversation for a couple minutes.
Good for him. Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him. That's classy.
That's great. That's what the hobby's about. When you have the players who truly respond to their fans and appreciate them. That's what it's all about, and that's real important. Michael, any final thoughts on your collection?
Well, I'd like to. I'm gonna keep collecting until I'll find something else. I wish the Patriots history went back further. It goes back to 1960, so there's only so much you can collect. I'm a big Red Sox collector. They go back to 1901. A big Bruins collector. They go back to 1924. The Patriots are 1960. So, at some point I probably will get all the programs. I'll find something else to collect. But tickets, like you said, even pennants. So it's a lifelong passion that's not going to stop anytime soon.
Well,
just stay away from collecting Steve Largent stuff. It's pretty thin.
Exactly. I've got some Largent rookies, Joe. I do have some Largent rookies. Yeah.
There's some that surfaced in the Midwest now, so we have confirmed there are other large rookies in the country.
I think I got 3 or 4. So go ahead.
I was going to say over the years, I run into quite a few collectors, and I'm going back in the 80s when I used to do shows more actively than I do now in the early 90s, that there were a lot of guys collecting a complete run of AFL football programs and ticket stubs from the Bills, from the Jets, from the Patriots. And they always said it was doable with a lot of work type of situation. And it was true. Back then, you could find the programs that, you really have to work at it to find them. And I know, and I'm sure there are people out there who collected a complete run of, let's say, New York Jet programs and ticket stubs. Same with you, ticket stubs
right.
and programs. And I just think it's the coolest thing because it is the history of the team, and you're reading the history of the team, you're seeing the history of the team, and it's just you can't make collecting any more pure than that, as far as I'm concerned. And that to me is one of the nicest things about our hobby. I mean, it's just amazing, just amazing.
Absolutely. I'm in complete agreement, and I'm just happy
story.
that. Yeah, thank you. And it's been amazing.
Patriots reaching out to you.
Yeah, that's a great story. Yeah.
You have a great collection, and I thoroughly and truly appreciate you being on the show today, talking about it. And you going to the game tonight again, or are you flying out?
Yes, I am. My uncle's heading back to Chicago now, but I'm heading back tomorrow. And I'm actually going to go to the game tonight with my uncle here in Boston, who's a lifetime Red Sox fan. So, yeah.
Great.
Hitting all 3 games this weekend.
Good. You have that's a great series to watch. Fenway Park.
Yep.
Beautiful park for baseball. Still classic. Still historical. Couldn't ask for anything more. Thank you for being on the show, Michael. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Talk soon. All right. Bye-bye.
See you, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michael Steele, I guess, and his Boston Patriots program collection, truly amazing, truly an amazing collection, in my opinion. And then again, I go back to what I just said. It's so nice to hear collectors, especially AFL collectors, who have collected from 1960 on, even though they didn't see the team, during the AFL, or they were born during that time frame, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an amazing collection. And again, that's not taking anything away from your collection from 1976, which again, that's only 16 years later. Who knew the NFL was going to expand other than those who were following football in the 1970s? We had a pretty good idea with the WFL coming on the scene and being the unfortunate big mess that it was. It still provided football-hungry fans and collectors something to go after, something to watch. I listened to and I watched as many WFL games as I could back in the 70s, and I never could imagine back then that it would actually lead to actual expansion for 2 teams other than 2 teams that really didn't play in the WFL on top of it, which I thought was pretty interesting. I always thought Birmingham, Alabama was going to be the next expansion team because they really liked their team. They were really after their team. And Charlotte at the same time. But it ended up being Tampa and Seattle. So truly interesting to look at it in that perspective. So,
well, I love hearing his side because I mean, you tend to be a fan of who you are geographically, and when my dad, we lived in southern Washington, Vancouver, growing up. But I mean, my dad, when I turned 8, took me to a Seahawk game, and then every year, in December, my dad would take me to a game, and it just became a tradition. And that's how I was introduced to the Seahawks. And you talk to you hear Michael's story, same thing. I mean, and here we are, and his passion for collecting is, him and his dad going to games and enjoying them. I mean, I don't have any dates or scores memorized from any Seahawks game I went to, so obviously, that's his passion. I loved hearing the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my passion always has been Yale football because that was the first game I ever went to, and I can never erase that memory out of my mind, even though Yale football is a shell of what it used to be. It's still, there's still nothing like for me going to the Yale Bowl, although it's, a completely different experience 50 plus years later. But at the same time, I still have those memories when I walk into that bowl of my father and I walking in there the first time back in 1966. So, it's just, it's something you can't erase. It's something you can't change. And to me, it's the beauty of being a fan in a lot of cases and the beauty of collecting at the same time. And I also like what Michael said about he collected one game. He always bought a program at every game that he went to, with the exception of that one in 72. I thought that was pretty cool. That's really neat.
That's cool. That takes a lot of foresight to be a kid, a 12-year-old kid saying, I'm saving this program. Right. Yeah. I don't think I was that mature when I was 12. So.
Exactly. And a lot of, it's today because the programs are dramatically different than they were years ago. A lot of people don't save them anymore, even though any game I go to, I still buy a program, no matter if it's, a Packer or Yale or whatever game I'm going to at the same time. All right, we're in our goal line stance. We're down to, we're down to 4 minutes here. Joe, quickly, what did we learn on today's show?
Well, I also wanted to give a shout-out, if I may digress, Captain. Number 56, the recent Gridiron Greats, had two amazing articles in it that I was really impressed with. Martin Jacobs had a good summary on Jimmy Johnson. And there's a lot of these old players you don't know a lot about. So I always appreciate it when somebody, puts a magnifying glass on a player. A really good article about Jimmy Johnson. I had no idea he was that good. And it was a good read. Uh-huh. And then Kerry Lavin's, story, later on in the magazine about the Heisman ballot on, Rashaan Salam was incredible. It was just incredible. First of all, I had no idea that Kerry was that involved with the Heisman process.
Right. Right.
It's funny. I started working on an article about a year ago for Gridiron, and the title of it is the insignificance of the Heisman Trophy, and it was just basically just taking the last 20 people who won the Heisman Trophy and saying, showing what they've done in the NFL, which isn't much lately, and then comparing it to the old timers, who won. You take like an Earl Campbell or Barry Sanders who won Heisman's, and it's just been a long time since the Heisman Trophy winner's gone on to do something meaningful in the NFL. But anyway, that's a side topic. But really, really impressive article by Kerry that just showed the human factor behind, Salam and his passing recently. I just thought that was an incredible article. I just wanted to mention it. Great magazine that quarter.
I think what Kerry does with it is in giving that human approach to the Heisman, and at the same time, you can't deny what you're saying, that a lot of these guys do nothing. And when they get into the NFL, it's like it's all over. Their career ends with that Heisman Trophy, and that's it. And they can't take it to the next level. And I think, again, it's symbolic of our times in football, the rent-a-player, the player who tries to make a fortune in 3 years type of thing. I yawn at the NFL draft now because to me it's so, utterly ridiculous watching. It's not even funny. I mean, 2-3 guys actually make it for a career out of all these guys who are drafted? I mean, it just doesn't make sense after a while. Yeah. It's just it's disappointing to say the least. All right, we're in our 2-minute warning, 2-minute stance. Joe, what other thoughts do we have?
I always just love hearing. I mentioned earlier when we were talking to Michael, that is why we collect. Because hearing him talk about walking out into a stadium with his dad, and just sharing that, and the greatest game he's ever seen, with the Redskins, and a safety, and et cetera. It's just, and I just that put a bow on why we collect. That put a bow on why we're here on this show talking about collectibles in football. Great guest, Captain. As always.
It's a great to hear all these collectors share their stories, and to me, it's just the pureness and the history of collecting, and the pureness and the history of football. And again, that's what we try to do here. All right, we're down to a minute. Couple wrap-ups again. I'd like to send out healing prayers and thoughts to Tex Noel. I hope he feels better. I know he's got a long climb ahead. Kind of shook me when I heard that. I feel bad. I've known Tex for quite a few years now, and I feel bad for him. I hope he gets better soon. Again, we're Gridiron Greats. The podcast has been brought to you by MSP Sports Cards, MSPSportsCards.com, and BST Auctions, BSTAuctions.com. Joe will be back in May. Have a good day, a good couple of weeks before we get back. And I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the podcast. Number 7, Gridiron Greats Magazine. Again, check out our website, GridironGreatsMagazine.com. Thanks for listening.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.